You may have heard the story of a father in San Francisco who took a picture of his toddler's infected groin. At his pediatrician's request, by the way, important detail. It was a weekend and the clinic offered a remote consultation. Nothing particularly unusual. He sent the photo through his phone, like countless of parents have done since telemedicine became standard. But this one was flagged by Google's AI system as a potential child abuse. Within hours, his entire digital identity was gone. Email locked, photos deleted, cloud access revoked, even his phone number because it was tied to his Google account. Everything stopped working. He didn't find out why until the police actually showed up. They reviewed everything, interviewed him, verified the doctor's records, and cleared him. Nothing wrong was going on. But even after the law enforcement confirmed that there was zero wrongdoing, Google still refused to reinstate his account. Their AI had spoken. And the human reviewers, they didn't challenge the system. They followed policy. They followed protocol. They did not pause to ask, could there be a different explanation? That's what happens when systems, human or machine, default to suspicion instead of assuming positive intent. And it's not just about AI. This story is a mirror, a hard one, because every day teams and organizations operate on the same flawed assumption that people need to be watched, corrected, and controlled before they can be trusted. We say we value transparency and accountability, yet we build cultures that lead with doubt, not dialogue. When someone makes a decision we don't understand, why don't we ask why? Instead, we assume incompetence or worse, malice, and then we act accordingly. That's a blame culture, and it's everywhere. It shows up in how we respond to mistakes, in how we interpret silence in a meeting, in how we word our feedback, and in who gets the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't. Now, let's go back to the story for a second. What if instead of trying to confirm its suspicion, the AI had been designed to ask a different kind of question? Like, what legitimate reason might someone have for taking this photo? Is there medical context in adjacent messages, or is the account showing patterns of concern, or is this completely isolated and possibly has a reasonable explanation? That's what assuming with positive intent looks like in system design. It's not naive. We're not talking about building reckless optimism. That's not what this is all about. It's about emotional intelligence, which we translate into the architectures of what we build. And that translation is just as vital inside of our organizations. Because when our default mode is suspicion, everything gets slower, heavier, more political because we need to protect ourselves. That becomes fraud. Communication becomes filtered, and teams spend more energy navigating internal dynamics than solving real problems. Now, assuming positive intent doesn't mean ignoring red flags. It means we pause before reacting, we ask before accusing, and we seek to understand before we move to protect or punish. And that shift from blame to curiosity isn't just about culture, it's also about outcomes. I once worked with a team where the critical customer report was delayed. It was late. So tensions were naturally very high. And unfortunately, the executive in the room, in that particular room for the meeting, turned towards one of the analysts and say, "Did you drop the ball on this?" That question, just those 5 words, landed like a punch. That that meeting just went completely awry. What followed was 30 minutes of CYA explanations, everyone distancing themselves, and nobody wants to touch the hot potato, fingers pointing in every direction instead of moving forward. Not 1 minute of that time was spent trying to figure out how to get the report delivered. It was all about protecting ourselves. Now, try to imagine a different type of approach. Think of an executive that instead approaches and asks, "Hey, I'm trying to understand what happened here. What got in the way?" It's very legitimate. It's the same curiosity. It has a sense of urgency. It's a completely different tone, and therefore it has a different result. That kind of meeting could have been a problem solving session. Instead, they had a meeting that they just became a theater for play. Assuming positive intent short circuits the entire pattern. It keeps the door open just enough for understanding to enter. Now, let's take it even further. Because in agile environments, this isn't just a nice to have mindset, it's a prerequisite. Agile thrives on trust, on self organization, on emergent solutions. You can't have that if people are constantly bracing for impact. In fact, one of the core reasons retrospectives become performative is because teams don't feel safe enough to be real. They withhold insights. They speak in abstractions. They avoid naming the friction that really matters. And it all traces back to the same root: low psychological safety caused by a culture that suspects before it inquires. By contrast, this is what it means to embed assuming positive intent into your agile culture. When someone raises a concern, we don't interpret it as resistance. We interpret it as that they actually care enough to speak up. Or when someone fails, it's not about asking who's to blame. We ask, what did we learn from this experience? We all know that it didn't go well. We already know that. What did we learn? It's the most important thing so that we don't repeat it. And when someone disagrees, we don't see threat. We see that they have a different perspective. What is that perspective? It doesn't mean automatically that it's correct. And it's worth understanding it, because in understanding it, there may be something that we're missing or something that can complement, add, enhance our perspective. So in short, we stop treating each other like threats and start treating each other like teammates and actually working together. When we build a culture that assumes positive intent, the need for control systems just starts disappearing. People become more accountable, not less. They offer more feedback because they feel safe to do so. And they solve more problems before they escalate, because their focus is on the solution to deliver the value, not on self preservation. It's far more efficient, it's respectful, it works. So, whether you're designing an AI system or leading a team or simply showing up for work every day, here's the question for you: what's your default setting? Do you lead with trust or with suspicion? Because that choice, made in small moments over and over again, determines whether your culture becomes fragile or resilient, political or adaptive, or peripheral or one that's empowering. And in the age of AI, the choice matters more than ever because systems move fast. And when they're designed or led without having any emotional intelligence built into them, mistakes don't just hurt, they compound, they become so much more powerful. So you can flip the switch. By designing a culture the way we want our systems to behave, with context, curiosity, and the courage to assume positive intent. Have you seen this dynamic in your team? Whether it's a moment where blame took over or a time someone surprised you because you stopped to understand, drop a line in the comments. Let us know how that went. And I really want to understand what's happening in your workplace. What are you learning from all of this? How you're applying it? And if you'd like to learn more about building emotionally intelligent environments that support your development efforts, click one of these. I'll be happy to tell you all about it.